Again, using the little box method, right? So, so I've got x plus 3, and then x to the 4th goes here, right? So what do I multiply x by to get x to the 4th? Well, that would be x cubed. And x cubed times 3 is 3x cubed. And what do I add to x cubed to get 3x cubed? Well, 0. I don't add anything. Or 0x cubed, I guess I would say. Page 12. So remember yesterday we did the last part of that lesson first? Because I just had printed it out wrong, and I'm sorry about that. But that's how that works. So what do I multiply x by to get 0x cubed? Well, 0. It's just 0. Oh, I forgot to actually bring her into class. So this would be 0x squared, I guess. I can put 0 there. So plus 0x squared. And that would be 0x squared. So what do I add to 0x squared to get negative x squared? Well, negative x squared. So I multiply by negative x. And negative x times 3 is negative 3x. And what do I add to negative 3x to get negative x? I think that's 2x. Yep. And what do I multiply x by to get 2x? 2. 2 times 3 is 6. What do I add to 6 to get 6? 0. So my answer is going to be x cubed minus x plus 2. Because I don't have to have the x squared there, right? Because it's 0x squared and that equals 0. Is everyone okay with that? Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. And then the second one, is 3x minus 2. And I'm starting out with 27x cubed, right? So what do I multiply 3x by to get 27x cubed? 9x squared. And 9x squared times negative 2 is negative 18x squared. What do I add to negative 18x squared to get 9x squared? I think that's 27x squared. And so again, I get 9x, so negative 18x. What do I add to negative 18x to get negative 3x? 15x. And 3x times 5 gives me 15x. So that would give me negative 10. And what do I add to negative 10 to get negative 9? 1. So that would be plus 1 over 3x minus 2. And there's my answer. Questions? Nice job, Jess, by the way. Good job. Okay, so now we're going to start solving. So we've added, no, what have we done so far? Yeah, we've added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided, right? So we've done all the major operations for polynomials. Now we're going to solve. And we're going to start out by solving something you guys already know how to solve, and that's quadratic equations. And we can solve that basically three different ways. We have the zero product property, which says if I have two things multiplied together and they equal 0, then one of those things equals 0, right? So I set those equal to 0 and solve. The other way is the square root property. So if I have x squared equaling something, I take the square root of both sides and solve that way. And then the last way is my favoriteest way, the quadratic formula. And if you thought that was sarcastic, it was. The quadratic formula says x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I find the a, b, and c from having my quadratic equation in standard form, and it's just the coefficients from the equation. So A is with the x squared, B is with the x, and C is my constant by itself. I pull those out, I plug it into the quadratic formula, solve it, and I get an answer. I get two answers usually. Okay, so most of the problems, unfortunately, today will be solved by the quadratic formula, my favoriteest thing to do ever in the whole world. Okay? Yes, that was very sarcastic. Okay. It is easy, you guys. It's just long. Like you guys hate long stuff, I hate the quadratic formula because there's other ways to do it. But sometimes those other ways are more complicated, and you guys don't like those ways. So here we go. The main thing we need to do really is make sure everything's on the same side. We need to start out with everything on the same side of the equal sign, right? So I'm going to move everything. I'm going to make this big enough so everyone in here can see too. I'm going to move everything to the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to subtract 10x squared and add 7. Add 7. And let's see, what do we get? X squared plus 4x minus 45 equals 0. Is that right? That's good. And then the first thing I want to do is I want to check to see if I can factor this. Because if I can factor it, I can use the zero product property, which is the easiest way. If I can't factor it, I'm going to have to use the quadratic formula. So I want to see, is there two numbers that multiply to be negative 45? Oh, my Lanta. 45, let me see if I can write that better. 45, and add to be positive 4. So are there two numbers that multiply to be negative 45 and add to be positive 4? Oh, yeah, I think so. 9 and negative 5. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. So this multiplies to, or factors to, x plus 9 times x minus 5, and that equals 0. So now I have two things multiplied together that equals 0. So I can set them equal to 0. So I can say that either x plus 9 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0. And then just solve. So x is going to either equal negative 9 or positive 5. Questions on that one? Everyone's okay? So basically, I'm going to tell you guys this is just a review of solving last year's stuff. Okay, we haven't got too difficult yet. Okay. Number 2, look, I only have an x squared, so I know I can solve this one by just taking a square root, right? So I can add 16 to both sides, and I get x squared equals 16. And how do I make an x squared become an x? Anybody? Square root it. So if I square root one side, I have to square root the other side. So x is going to equal what?
4.
Or a quadratic has to have how many answers? 2 answers. So I only have one answer, so I've got 4. What's my other answer? What other number, when I square it, gives me 16? There we go. Negative 4. Good. Because remember, a negative times a negative equals positive, right? So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Okay? Everyone okay with that? Questions? Okay. And then, okay, so now we're going to do number 3. Okay, so we can factor this, or we can use the quadratic formula. Either one. I'm going to use the quadratic formula because we need to demonstrate the quadratic formula. So I need to find, this is ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So the first thing I want to do is find out what a, b, and c are. So a equals 2, b equals negative 3, and c equals 1. Okay? Questions on that? Is everyone okay with finding a, b, and c? Notice everything has to be on the same side of the equal sign. Okay? Now I'm going to take it and plug it into the quadratic formula. I'm going to just write that over here. x equals, what does x equal? Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so I'm just going to take a, b, and c and plug it into that equation. So I'm going to get x is going to equal minus b, which is negative 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times a is 2, times c is 1, all over 2 times a, which is 2. Okay? Anybody have any questions on what I did? All I did is I substituted 2, negative 3, and 1 in for a, b, and c. Okay? Now I'm going to do order of operations and simplify the whole thing. So minus a minus is positive, plus or minus. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. Let me make this a little shorter. All divided by 4. So that gives me 3 plus or minus the square root of 1 all over 4. So what's the square root of 1? 1. Good. Whoever said that online, thank you. Or in my office. Thanks, Nia. So then we get 3 plus 1. So I have two separate problems. I have 3 plus 1 divided by 4. And I have 3 minus 1 divided by 4. Okay, that's what the plus or minus means. So I get 4 divided by 4, 1. And then I get 1/2. There's my answers. Yeah. Is there any questions on those? No. Thanks, Nia. Okay, so we've got, you guys have got 9 problems to try out here. 9. I'm going to try and leave the examples up there so you can see them. Let's just do a few at a time so you can see what's going on. People at home can see what's going on. I'm going to try and get... So let's do these 6. Oh, my Lanta. Sorry, I'm trying to get it to fit on the screen. There. Okay. So the first one, all I did on the first A, on number A, is I just factored it. I said I can take an x out of both of those terms, so I get x times x minus 6 equals 0. Now I have two things multiplied together that equal 0. So I either get x equals 0 or x minus 6 equals 0. So x is going to equal 0 or positive 6. Okay? Please make sure if you have any questions, you ask them. Number B, subtract 7 from both sides. X squared plus 6x minus 7 equals 0. And I think I factored this. So what numbers multiply to be negative 7 and add to be 6? 7 and negative 1. So x plus 7 and x minus 1. So either x plus 7 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 7 or positive 1. And then for C, okay, C. Great. So let's see. I get 5x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 4x squared minus 8x. So subtract 4x squared, add 8x, 4x squared, x, and I get x squared plus 3x minus 7 equals 0, which does not factor to anything. So I'm going to need to do the quadratic formula. So A equals 1, B equals 3, and C equals negative 7. So I've got, I'll start over here. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 7, all divisible by 2 times 1, which is going to equal negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 28 divisible by 2, which equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 37 all over 2. And that's it on that one. 37 doesn't simplify. So, done. Okay. Pause for a moment. Everyone okay with that? No questions? Okay. So part D, here we go. I need to add 1. So I've got 6x squared minus 12x plus 1 equals 0. And again, that one doesn't factor. So A equals 6, B equals negative 12, and C equals 1. X is going to equal minus a negative 12 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times 6 times 1, all divisible by 2 times 6, which is going to equal 12 plus or minus the square root 144 minus 24 all over 12, which equals 12 plus or minus the square root of 120 all over 12, which is going to equal 12 plus or minus, sorry, I need to erase that, 2 square root of 30 all over 12. And so that simplifies to 6 plus or minus the square root of 30 over 6. Questions? No, we're okay. Sometimes once you start simplifying them, it gets a little harder. Okay, so E, add 11. Oh, I did not add 11. I looked at the equation and saw there was only an x squared. So sorry. So I added 14. And I got 8x squared equals 3. I divided by 8. And I got x squared equals 3/8. And then I took the square root of that. And I got x equals plus or minus the square root of 3 over 8. Done. Okay. You could have done this with the quadratic formula. We've got slightly different, it would have been the same answer just in a slightly different form, okay? So it would have just still been the same answer. I think you would have got, let's see, plus or minus, let me see if I can figure out in my head, the square root of 24 over 8. So that's going to be 4 times 6, right? So that would be plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 8. So plus or minus square root of 6 over 4. I think that's what you would have got if you would have done the square root, the quadratic formula. Okay? So just slightly different, but you can do it this way, and I'm not rationalizing the denominator, so you can leave it that way. All right, F. On F, I subtract 9x. And I'm going to get 9x squared minus 9x minus 7 equals 0. And that doesn't factor either. So let's see. A is 9, B is negative 9, and C is negative 7. So I did x is going to equal minus a negative 9 plus or minus the square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 7 all divided by 2 times 9, which should equal 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 plus 252, all divisible by 18, which is going to equal 9 plus or minus the square root of 333, all divisible by 18. And then it still simplifies, so that's 9 plus or minus 3 square root of 37 divided by 18, or 3 plus or minus the square root of 37 divided by 6. I know that you don't think anything goes into 333 other than 3 and 111, but 9 does. 9 goes into 333, 37 times. Okay. All right, so we have three more problems. The last 3 all involve an imaginary number, right? Because you have a negative underneath your square root. So, so A is 6, B is 6, and C is 2. So I've got X is going to equal negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 6 times 2 all over 2 times 6. Whew. So that's going to equal negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 48, all divisible by 12, which is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 all over 12, which is going to equal negative 6 plus or minus 2i square root 3 all over 12, or negative 3, come on, Campbell, negative 3 plus or minus I root 3 all over 6. Is there any questions on that one? So remember, if there's a negative inside the square root, it comes out as an I. And then you simplify if all 3 terms can be simplified. Okay. So, sorry, I lost track of my thoughts for a second. H, I'm going to add 2x to both sides and add 8. Add 2x, add 8. So I get 7x squared plus 2x plus 8 equals 0. And A is going to be 7, B is going to be 2, and C is going to be 8. So X is going to equal negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 7 times 8, all divided by 2 times 7. Yes, okay, which is going to be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 224 all over 14, which is going to equal negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 220 over 14, or negative 2 plus or minus 2i square root of 55 all over 14. So that simplifies to negative 1 plus or minus I root 55 all over 7. So just, you see, the only thing you forgot on yours is the I. Does that make sense? Okay. And then number I, we just got done talking about i's. Subtract 4x, add 2. So I've got 9x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. So A is 9, B is negative 4, and C equals 2. So X is going to equal minus a negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 9 times 2, all divided by 2 times 9. So that should be 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 72 all over 18, which should be 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 56 all over 18. And that simplifies to 4 plus or minus 2i square root of 14 all over 9. No, all over 18, sorry. So that's 2 plus or minus I root 14 all over 9. Okay, there we go. All right, questions? Quadratic formula, yay. All right, I think your Delta Math today is mostly quadratic formula, and Delta Math is working today. Yesterday, Delta Math was having issues, as we all know. So you should be able to get everything done today. And we have about, we get it out at 18, so you've got about 38 minutes, 28 minutes. Wow, I'm adding well today. Okay.